Hello, guys, and welcome back to season 1, episode 2 of the podcast titled In Search of Success. As I mentioned in episode 1, focus for season 1 is leadership, and our first guest, Nitish, was amazing. Our second guest today is also going to be exceptional. Now, let me begin by asking you a simple question. What would be your one word if you have to describe a journey, a corporate journey that starts in 2004 and the particular person starts as a recruiter, and in 2020 June 2022, this year June, the person takes a break or retires as a CHRO or Chief Human Resources Officer? My one word for this kind of journey would be interesting. But if you tell me that the person making this journey is a woman, I would change the word from interesting to inspiring. And I know her for years now, and I have always known her to be a very strong decision maker. I wouldn't say that I knew that she'll become a CHRO or she'll achieve this or she'll achieve that, but one thing I knew about her is she had that fire, and I knew that if she had to set her mind on something, she'll definitely go ahead and achieve it. That much I knew. So this particular journey of our friends, of my friends, it has been unique, right? It has been filled with various different kind of experiences. It has been, as I said, it has been phenomenal. It has been inspiring for me, right? And the intention is for us to discuss leadership with her, various aspects of leadership with her, and understand from her journey, from her experience, from her expertise, that what can we do, or how can we make our journey of leadership much more meaningful, much more impactful, much more inspirational, much more influential. Now, ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together for the fierce, for the focused, for the, let's say, formidable and fabulous Vachana Jairam. Enjoy the episode, and I'll see you at the end of this discussion. Hi, Vachana. Welcome to this podcast. Thank you for joining us. I'm excited to have you on the show. Are you excited to be on the show?
Hi, Deepak. Yeah, sure. I think talking to you has always been exciting, and this is a topic close to your heart, I believe.
Close to your heart as well? Not close to your heart? How is it?
Leadership is a very large topic. I mean, yeah, of course, I mean, need to know, but it's more your baby that I know. I can see that. And
Okay.
any input that I give would be insightful for you. Would be great.
For me, as well as my audience. That's why I believe so. That's why you are here. So let's start this discussion with a very fundamental question. When I say leader, who comes to your mind? Is there a particular person or a group of person or 2-3 person people that come to your mind? Who do you associate leader with?
Yeah, I think two people. One is very close to home. I would say my father. He's a leader figure that I grew up with since childhood, and I've seen the kind of how he influenced people around him, and even if he's not around, how his influence has still been around. And other person, we've been in the IT industry, mostly, right? Like 19 industry. So I really don't have like this one leader that I say, hey, this is the leader that I have in mind. Nobody's really, hit home for me that much. But like Mahatma Gandhi, I think is one of the great leaders. If he could influence and align people to his vision, which was, like a combination of everybody else's as well. Yeah, he's another person that comes to my mind.
Okay. Just leading on these questions, you mentioned your father and Mahatma Gandhi. You mentioned a couple of words like influence and vision, right? So apart from being influential or apart from having a vision, what are the characteristics do you think makes a leader? Like, for example, I understand Mahatma Gandhi has been named a couple of times in this podcast. So what makes him a leader is, of course, his vision of a free India, right? Or independent India, right? And then influencing an entire nation to stand behind that vision and support him in that vision, and finally achieving it. So there is vision, there is influence, then there is execution. That's what makes him a leader. But anything else that you can pick up from your father as well as Mahatma Gandhi that makes them a leader in your mind?
Yeah. See, leader will have to be somebody. I mean, obviously there has to be a vision. He has to, I would say, they instead of just to be gender neutral. They will have to articulate it very well. So when I say communication skills, it definitely is not English or any one language that way. It is
Absolutely.
how they articulate it, very clearly. Even if the vision is not extremely clear to them as they progress towards it, if there is course correction to be made, but the end goal is definitely there. But if they can keep articulating, keep communicating, so someone who's human, and I use this very broadly, when I say people skills, they have to have people skills, because somebody who's an expert at a particular field. Now, getting back to, if we have to speak about, say, our organizations, somebody who's an expert, like has the best business acumen, can that person be a great leader? Maybe, maybe not. But is that the only skill that's going to make them a leader? No. Somebody who's kind of grown up, knows what it is on the ground reality, how it's going to impact the lowest rung of people in whatever small group. It could be a small team that we're referring to, organization, or a larger group, or nation at large. So, and someone who's very open and transparent. Again, that's a very broad term, but how much ever information that you can share as genuinely as possible, because the intent has to be very genuine. These are integrity and walk the talk has to be the thing. So whatever they say, they have to follow. These are some of the key personality traits as well that I'd say is required.
Okay, makes a lot of sense. So when you mentioned communication skills or articulation, you mentioned about clarity and conviction. Like they might have the clarity, or they might get the clarity throughout the journey, but their conviction, they should be able to articulate. I believe in this. That's why let's go on this journey. So yes, that made a lot of sense. Then you mentioned about people skills, which I kind of relate that word with the word empathy. And people skills, you have to know how to connect with your audience, your team member, your customers, your management, stuff like that. Then you mentioned about open, transparent, and integrity, right? So a couple of questions come here. This is the personality traits we are discussing, right? Then the other part was influence an entire team or an entire organization, and sometimes an entire nation, right, behind your vision. Now, what do you think is the best tool or technique or strategy or framework that a leader can deploy, right, to influence people at workplace, outside workplace, right? So just to set the context of this discussion, when I talk about leadership, right, I have focused on 4 different topics. One is political leadership. Second one is social leadership. The third one is military leadership. The fourth one is corporate leadership, right? Okay. So it's not just kind of, the boundary is not corporate leadership only. We can pick and choose lessons from military leadership and start putting in here. We can have lessons learned from social leadership, like Mahatma Gandhi. He was a social leader, no designation, no nothing, right? So then we have political leaders. They come with designations like ministers and stuff, and they kind of create a different level of influence, right? So we can basically collect the lessons from all of these when we're discussing a particular question, right? So when I ask this question, what are the strategies that you would advise from your experience or your exposure that you have seen a mentor or a leader doing it in a corporate setup? What are the strategies that you would advise an aspiring leader who is watching this podcast to use or deploy in order to become effective and influential?
I'd explain it using the corporate, leadership probably. Yes. And I'm sure that can be sort of replicated to any sort of group.
Absolutely.
Obviously, these are not foolproof. I mean, there are each.
It's your experience. Others' experience might be different. Opinions might be different, but share with your experience. What would be your strategies?
Right. What I've seen work as a best practice, and it mostly works is see, a leader is somebody who has to, I mean, he's already influenced, he has a vision in mind, he's already influenced a group of people to kind of go towards this vision. And they have to be somebody who's taking the group along, right?
Mhm.
For that, one of the things is to build trust. So you know, if say, for example, if it's a 1:10, it's easier to build that one-on-one trust with the 10 people.
Mhm.
So obviously leadership skills would start with a smaller group. That's how you kind of grow up the, levels in corporate, right?
Right.
So initially, if you're going with the Indian IT industry, you would become a lead. That's the first time that lead thing where you get a team of like a 4 or 5, then you become a manager with the team of 10 to 20. So when you have a smaller team, irrespective, first point is to build trust with your team. And for that, that whole thing that I spoke about, being transparent, walking the talk, all of that will be the foundation to build that trust.
Okay.
Then you kind of create leaders like you. I mean, you empower your next set of people who you think are completely aligned, to your vision, so that they replicate. Because you cannot be like, it's not like Mahatma Gandhi ji was there all through the nation at all times to kind of go back and knock at every person's home to say, hey, come out and fight for the freedom. But he created so many leaders in that. So people were empowered. Did it happen? I mean, honestly, I'm too little a person to be speaking about Mahatma Gandhi, and it's not like I've read a lot about him as well. But it's very little literature what I know about him and what I've seen, and how also my understanding of how it may have worked, right? Which is why I said if it's about nation and how I see it in the corporate world. What I've seen is work that, like, say, that is what works. Say, for example, if it's a team, then you identify, that who are the guys who would have that skill, who will see the opportunity and rise to the occasion and say, hey, this is something that, I can take it up and do as well. Leader empowerment is very, very important because a leader must know the strengths and weaknesses, of themselves. They cannot be strong at everything. They cannot be everywhere. So identifying your weakness more than strength is more critical, I'd say. So hire experts where you're lacking to fill the gap. Hire the experts and trust them. Give them that trust as well, that you can take care of this. Course correct if it's kind of moving away from the final vision. That should kind of then naturally spread across, so that everybody's speaking the same language. Everybody, it's not lost in translation, and it's not like one person screaming his lungs out and saying this is my vision, but it's all fizzled out next level, that they are not clear. And the leader should be open to criticism, must be open to feedback. It doesn't necessarily have to be criticism. But if there is criticism from the next level, that's even better, because that means the leader has been open to, has been accessible and approachable to people to even share their opinion in that manner. And yeah, then you kind of correct yourself as well. Take opinions from people. It's the same thing, right? Like how we run surveys, take feedback, but if you don't take action on those feedback, those surveys just become a checklist for HR mostly. Which happens once annually, and then employees don't see anything being implemented, and next year they're like neutral. That moves your engaged employees from highly engaged to not engaged, and then they exit, etc., etc. It's the same setup, I'm sure, elsewhere. How you engage in a you said political, in a social setup is, and other one you said was military. Yeah, it's completely different. But yeah, these things should work.
Okay, this is very interesting. You kind of touched upon all the aspects of leadership that we wanted to discuss, right? For example, when you said open to be criticized or actually seek feedback, my question is, this is something that we all know, that people who are actual leaders, and I have worked with a few of them, they proactively ask for feedback, right? Whether to their team or whether to their bosses or management and mentors, they actively seek it. But my question is, what percentage of leaders? If I have to ask that and I have to just interject my experience, I don't think there are many leaders in the corporate setup who are actively seeking feedback or criticism for that matter. So what is stopping these people?
Insecurity, right? I mean, nobody wants to know what's not doing well. I mean, if somebody pointing out your weakness is not a comfortable thing, because then people feel I may lose influence on them. Unfortunately, it's the other way around.
Okay.
It is, see, you asked me about leaders, and a couple of people did pop up in my head with whom I've closely been associated with. I started off as a recruiter, in this entire journey. And, the last post that I had was, of the HR head. But I have always worked for small startups and mid-sized organizations. So, my interactions with CXO level folks has been quite high. I've been lucky that way. Hence, and I've seen there've been some great leaders with their own, what do you call, weakness or areas of improvement, I'd say. Probably that's a better word they'd like to hear. Areas of development. But the ones that actually who popped up in my head are the ones who were open to say, hey, I don't know what decision do I take. I'm really scared. This is something that's being pushed by the board. How do we articulate? And a particular leader I'm talking about, this is about say 5 years ago, I used to work with this person. I don't want to take the name, but he was a CXO, and I was not a very senior, like in terms of the hierarchy. There was a lot of layers between him and I. Even then, like, because I was HR and I was, heading the business partnering of a large team, he made it a point to discuss and ask, how do you think I should be sharing this information? Has he taken every single suggestion of mine? No, but at least he made me comfortable to share that. And my loyalty to him as a leader, kind of skyrocketed, right? Because I'm like, okay, he's sharing his problems with me. That's the organization's problem. And now when I talk to my employees, either one-on-one or group, and this is something that I'll keep in mind because this is a problem that we need to solve. So in these conversations, I used to, there were times that he would say something which he shouldn't have said in a larger forum because it'll rattle people. And I would go back and say that was something that you should not have said. And next time he would be cautious of not, choosing his words wisely. Everybody is doing it for the first time. So which is why I said human, right? A leader must be human. Know that, I will also make mistakes. But I learn from my mistakes, and there's no harm asking from inputs from anybody. And it's the same thing at home as well. It's nothing to do with leader, but in your house setup, your kids also could be giving you feedback.
Right.
If you're saying, hey, you're just 10-year-old, what do you know? I know better. You never learn. It's the same thing. So I think it doesn't matter what amount of experience somebody is bringing into the organization. Feedback is a feedback. To try and see what best you can make out of it.
Right.
Like you said, very, very few people genuinely walk up to you and say, hey, how do you think my session went? Because these CXOs would be, that's another thing. Like it's most times these leaders end up addressing crowd when there is a success story to share or there is a failure story to share. So it's either good news or bad news. There's nothing in between. In between, the leaders are just nowhere to be seen. They are busy, of course. There's no time to come and talk, and somebody else is filling in, which is all right. Obviously, they have a lot. They have their set of KRAs and KPIs that they are working towards. Not that they'll have the time to interact with every employee all the time, but I think regular connects, with the set of people. It could be the HODs, if that's the first level of connect, who are the brand ambassadors as well. Those are very, very important. Like, because you run it past them, you gain their confidence, and then, battle out any questions that's there. That's like, 50% of the battle then start, because they will then go ahead and communicate it to the next set of people.
Right.
Yeah.
So here you mentioned about connect with the people, right? You mentioned about department heads and stuff. Lean philosophy, if you're aware of it, they advocate that a leader should talk to the employees on the ground, people who are doing the groundwork, people who are connected with the customers at all times. You should have regular connect with these people. And in lean philosophy, it's called a particular term. It's called a walk. I'm forgetting the exact term, but you have to be on the shop floor. Since lean comes from manufacturing, it basically says you have to be on the shop floor, understanding what is going wrong, what is stopping the employees from doing their best, right? So do you think a regular connect with audience or your employees, larger audience, is something that you will advise, or
Yeah,
okay?
in for sure, any of these connects, like most of the companies, see what we've been trying and doing, like I mentioned, I work for small startup to small to mid-sized companies, right? So most of the best practices are kind of replicated from large organizations,
That's
the
okay.
Wipros and Infis of the
Right.
world. And not always what work for such a large organization needs to work for you.
Right.
But whatever you intend to implement, the intention has to be very genuine, and at least you should give it your 100% to see through, at least for some time, to see if this is working or not. If it has worked for that large organization, it has worked for a reason, right? So which is how the best practices of HR are out there. Some of them will right now seem outdated, but actually they aren't, because employees are waiting to hear from a CEO the words that maybe the HODs or next level, their managers kind of parrot it out from the senior folks, but when they hear it from the horse's mouth, it does have an impact.
What kind of organization practice would you advise? Like, other than the regular stuff like the town hall meetings and other stuff, what would be some of your advice that somebody can take and start implementing in their life, and they can see the employees' engagement levels or trust in the leadership improving over a period of time? Do you have anything for us?
Yeah, I think a whole lot of top-to-down communication needs to happen. Like, I mean, which is what I'm saying. It could be town halls is essentially good, but for logistics reasons and whatever reasons, and also time and all of that.
Yeah.
Annually once, or at least once in 2 years, no, twice in a year, twice in a biannually is a good forum. Okay. I've seen it work in many of the places, which is why I use this thing. Most of the companies, and which is why I was also one of the HR. Most of the things probably I would have recommended, or it's been there, and after a point it dies down because people forget the intent of why did we even start this. Then it becomes a HR checklist. Right. Oh, okay, there's a town hall that has to be planned. There has to be you're literally begging for HODs, like, no, there's a 5-minute slot. Can you please talk? That's not the intent. What was the main objective of having these town halls? One, the sheer energy that, the entire set of employees coming into one room, listening to your leader, the kind of vibe that creates itself is a lot positive. Like, you look around, you'll know that your company is about 600, 800 people, but how often do you see all 600, 800 people in one room, right? Right. That in itself is like a feel-good factor. Like, okay, these many people are there, with us. And then there is a leader. And the leader is talking about actual challenges. Like, then that will give the meaning to what they do on day-to-day, life. Like, people are coming in, they're programming, they're doing something. But if, the example that you gave, the leader should be walking amongst the lowest rung of workers to know what they're doing. Of course, they need to know, and they may get that information directly by talking to one of the employees, or could be getting it through their own, sources. The reporting structures, basically. Correct. So they should be talking about it, because I've seen it making an impact. Like, you take a client name and say, hey, this app that was developed by this person, this particular thing that was done, and the team who's actually contributed towards that, they'll get it. Okay, like, the whatever that I've been coding and be it cursing, spending late hours, late nights, and all of that, there is somebody who's sitting in the US who's using it, and he's given the feedback to my CEO. So the visibility is like that level. So what I do has meaning to, exactly. How it is. That matters a lot for employees, no? When they find out that whatever they're doing, however small it might be, however insignificant in their views it might be,
it actually is touching a customer's life and it is getting communicated to my CXOs, and then they know about my work. That connect actually increases employee engagement and happiness percent, I guess.
True, true. And their genuine intent of wanting to do better work, right? Like, how can I improve? How can I do better? Naturally, I'm not saying this is like a definite hit on every, nail, but it does have that impact.
Okay.
And so more such communication, but like I was saying, instead of making it like a checklist and say, this is something that we have to get off the thing, make it more meaningful, but somehow, unfortunately, in amongst the employees, after a point, nobody asks questions. Like, they'll have 1,000,001 questions. You put a HR in front of them, they have like 300 million questions, and I'm like, these are some of it I wouldn't know what to say, because it would be a business decision. But you put a CXO in a larger room somewhere, we are not very comfortable asking questions. I think that's
why not? What's stopping these people?
Cool. I think our education system needs to change there. Not deviating from the topic, but essentially what I'm trying to say is somehow we really, really have to push people to ask questions. Also, the leaders should be comfortable answering tough questions. Or if they don't have the answer, they should even be comfortable to say, I don't know the answer for this. It's okay. I mean, just because he's the CEO or whatever CXO of the organization doesn't mean he knows the answer to every single question people are asking. There would be, some, I'm not talking about the transactional questions. Sometimes, employees can be cocky and put, somebody on a spot just for the fun of it. But big deal. I mean, if you don't know to answer, you should then, that's a comfortable thing you need to get from your own team, then a larger team, and then you get comfortable in a larger thing. Right. So asking what are the strategies? So yeah, town halls for sure. Another good thing which has worked and not worked also, I feel, is because if you move away from the objective, you kind of, lose the momentum and it becomes in like one regular activity, is these core operations meetings, right? Is normally recommended. So HOD's meeting with the CXO. That's also very important, because we're talking about empowering the next set of leaders. If they don't have enough information at hand to go back and handle their own teams, and to align themselves and their departments to the larger, team, organization's vision, they need to have all the information that they need, to go back, because it's to go back and talk to their team members. But these meetings have to be done very effectively, and that's a skill a CXO will have to develop. How much information needs to be given, rather than, goes back to, you already should have established that trust, that what is shared here, most of it will remain here. Very, openly say that this information cannot go out. But if you have to take the essence of this information, this is how we can go and communicate. So everybody is speaking the same language. Otherwise, different HODs have understood it differently. They go and say, don't know, this is an organization call, I've been told not to tell. Then there is a lot of, rumors and things that starts. It seems like a very basic thing, but it's not followed, unfortunately.
That's what I was trying to focus on. We know a lot of stuff that this is how it should be done, but when you actually go onto the ground, you don't see them getting converted into action. So this knowledge action gap is killing a lot of stuff. For example, you just mentioned about self-awareness, right? And you mentioned about being open and saying that I don't know the answer, or I don't know what to do right now. I'm scared a little bit as a leader. And Brené Brown talks about these things and mentions this as vulnerability, right? You be vulnerable, you be human. And only when a leader becomes a human, the connection to the team members is genuine and authentic. So the question that I have is, we mentioned about communication, regular communication with the employees. Now, go back. This is a question that I have asked previously, and this is very fascinating to me. We saw Mahatma Gandhi, right? We saw him collating, or basically aligning, an entire nation behind him for a cause where there was no internet, there was no nothing. Right now, we have all kinds of connections, but the distance between the leader and the team it's increasing. There is lack of communication, as you mentioned. It's not your view. I have experienced it as well. And all the companies I've seen, they have this problem, the gap of communication between leaders and the followers or team members or the employees. Why do you think that exists? We know that we must communicate and we must be very clear about our intent, right? And that intention should be there. Maybe tacticals and strategies could be omitted, but the intention should be communicated and everybody should be aligned. What is stopping these people from having this knowledge they have, but implementation execution wise? What's the problem? They don't have time?
I wish I had an answer to that, because this has been a question in my, the last company that I worked with as well. There had to be, sorry, I kind of move screen. There had to be a lot of push. I mean, some people, earlier company, to the last one, the leader was more forthcoming. He would in fact come and say, hey, what the hell, why haven't you, I want to do a town hall, HR
Right.
should
organize.
Should
by them, yes.
Correct. And which was good, that way. But I guess not everybody is comfortable with the public speaking, or they think the information that they are sharing is not okay. The answer that has come, instead of me guessing, because I did ask, rather than anything, I think there's a huge trust deficit. Okay. At least in the thing that this information, because is this new age companies are so what do you call it? I mean, information is everything, right? Like even any smallest of the strategy, it just leaks out, then it could be kind of a huge dent on the business, kind of, that's the fear, I think. So the leader that I'm referring to, he didn't know how to share it, or he's like, no, now is not the right time. And that right time never came. And I was there for 2 years and the right time never came. And it's not possible at 2 years, a leader not talking to the employees and not telling what, where we are headed, what is our challenge. And also other thing is, while you're working to empower other people, it is also about decentralizing a whole lot of things. That's another thing. Every information is kept with one individual. So obviously the burden is also so much more. I think leaders, it's not about, I think leaders must share the burden, because it's not one employee running the show, right? He's also an employee by the end of it. We're all in it together. I think if they bridge that trust deficit, this is in the larger forum that I'm talking about. But the communication we are talking about, there's internet and there's all sort of platforms. Why isn't there much communication? Unless you relate to what is happening, every single employee who comes in is integrated well into the organization. They wouldn't even know what they're working for, right? And why would they feel the need to talk to the topmost person?
Right.
So the onboarding process that we're talking about in HR is so important. But right now it's become, you give them a fancy onboarding kit and
checkbox,
yeah, which is good. I mean, that's also needed. It's part of the hygiene source. Because it's kind of recall of brand value. This is like my company, so when you're drinking coffee out of it, you feel kind of belong. But there's more, like, you need to keep talking about what are, organization's core values, what is our vision, what is our mission. Maybe it may not make sense for the entry level folks of what, thing, but it doesn't matter. Some organizations, I know they do it so well. You can pull out a random employee from the company and ask them. They may not know the entire details, but they will not give you incorrect details. Like at least what they know it correctly.
Right.
So it is an effort. It's a very different effort, everybody. And I think in this, I would say HR and first line managers play a very, very important role. It's not so much of the CX. So it's a culture build, of course, but yeah, integrating somebody into the culture. And for that, first line managers and HR are very key. They play a very important role. If that is done, then they know, okay, this was, then at least whoever joins in at whatever level, at least they have questions to ask. because they know what we intended to do. Otherwise, it's just like, okay, we're joining this company X, I'm given this set of work, I finish and go. What question would arise if you're not clear on what was the path anyway? Like,
Right.
so I'm just part of the journey. So they need to be clear on that. I think it's, again, comes back to different engagement. How do you engage with the employees, new age or otherwise?
Right. Now, you mentioned about culture, one of my favorite topics again for leaders. So if you're a corporate leader, I believe you have a lot of responsibilities understood. Personally, for me, I believe that the primary responsibility of a corporate leader is to create a culture, right, with a particular list of features. Like, for example, a culture where employees feel safe, right, or XYZ, right? So if we have to talk about building culture, building the workplace of tomorrow or today, workplace of today, beyond the pandemic, right, where everything is kind of distributed, right? So what would be what has been in your experience that these are something that a culture must have if it has to progress, if the company or the organization has to grow, and the employees have to be engaged? What kind of culture do you suggest that the leaders should focus building on? What are some of the, apart from being a culture where everybody feels safe to share information, to give feedback or whatever, right, or receive feedback as well? What would be some of the features of a culture that can make them go and become a market leader over a period of time, or stay ahead of competition, whatever, right? So
it's not just about employees feeling safe in the company.
Yeah, it was just an example. Yes, you tell me.
Correct. Yeah. So, the sense of belongingness, right, to an organization, for you to feel that, I strongly believe some of the, rather than using, like, culture setting seems like a scary word. If you give it to a leader, like, assume you kind of make me a head of an organization, say you set the culture. I'd, I'd actually, oh my God, like, okay, this seems like a big task, right? Like, how do I set the culture per se? Like, what should be there? It's about doing what is right, at the end of it is what is mostly important. Because, like, say, HR policies and processes, this is something that I keep telling, myself and my team, and that's something that I have followed as well. These HR policies and processes, or organization policies, forget about it, it's not just HR, organization, they are mostly guidelines. And as long as we use that as a high level guideline, but not but tweak it to the individual need, right, as and when required, as much as possible. I'm not saying you can go like beyond, what the purview of the organization's capability of helping out an employee or otherwise. But in general, having that thing is, this is my employee. As we keep talking about offices and extended family and all that, and treat them like family. Don't just use it as a word, so casually, right? Even genuinely treat them as family. If in any of your family member was in trouble, would you, the first instant is to kick him out of the house, him or her out of the house, or would you handhold, guide, and see, how you could correct them, talk to them, coach them, mentoring, all of that. Like, first try and see how we can make it right. Then it's obviously, it's a both give and take one. So the employee also has to be invested enough to, contribute equally towards what they're doing. So it's at a very high level. That's what I would see as, okay, that's a nice company to work for because they care for me. And in this care thing, the very small things actually, like the basic hygiene factors, every organization must have. Whatever, you could have a 10 employee company, 200, 2 lakh. Make your environment, working environment comfortable for employees. Don't, like, stringent save on, office infra to restrooms to, all these needs to be clean and very well thought of for employees. Ergonomic workplace is basic. You cannot argue about that.
You cannot say that it's the additional feature we are giving. It's basic necessity.
Yes. Yeah. How can you not, because employees you expect them to sit 10, 12 hours. How can you not just give them comfortable chairs and tables?
Right.
With work from anywhere or work from home. Yeah, the responsibility is on the employees, but you can still insist that we would like these kind of setup, and for that, okay, this is, I'm not saying give everything for free. It is not like a very cost effective model to run that way, but subsidize. A lot of companies gave these office setup amount sorts where you can buy decent
Right.
chairs, and now there could be an argument. So this is the thing, right? And I'll tell you what happens behind doors when we are bringing up things like this. Somebody will say, no, are you kidding me? 20,000 you'll actually get it for only 7,000, 13,000. These people will waste. um you know uh, yeah,
I would
so
say it's lack of trust in your employees. That's how I interpret it.
yes, yeah, exactly. I'm like, give the person 20 because you believe for a good infrastructure you would have spent 20 on him, maybe more or maybe less, keeping the the whole what do you call it, quantum of how much we had to set up against what they have to set it up. Trust the employee to do the best. Now in turn, when the person comes and says, hey, I'm having spondylitis, then you have an upper hand to ask, like, we did help you, support you with this, like, why didn't you make the best of it? Right, it's just that I'm not saying penalize that person, and because of one or two such silly characters of organization, don't kind of punish everybody else who will
Everybody.
genuinely probably invest.
Right.
And then don't make it like a policing thing, right? Which is the other thing, like ask for receipt to see did you really spend on that, maybe
Right.
for audit reasons or whatever. I mean, that's something that's still acceptable. I'm okay with that. But yeah, my point is that essentially trust that they will do this, or this is what we expect. If I am a strong believer that working from office is beneficial to build a culture and all that. Obviously time is changing. I haven't worked in work from anywhere kind of setups, so I really have very little to say about that. It's working fine for the new generation, sure. But do they feel still that connected? That's something we'll have to wait and see, because they're just getting into, it's just been 2 years into this. So yeah, like I was saying, culture building is about ensuring employees are taken care of and they have the feeling that, okay, my company is there for me. I can't mention the company again, but I can give you an example. This company, if there is a natural calamity, I mean, forget about taking care of their, healthcare and all of that, right? If an employee is stuck due to a natural calamity, be it an earthquake or something, if it is an employee and stuck anywhere, the person was airlifted from Nepal when there was an earthquake and brought back. That person sold for life,
Right.
And it's not just the employee. They didn't say, hey, employee ID and we'll pick only you, family, you figure it out, right? Employee and the entire family was airlifted from Nepal during an earthquake and brought back home safe. I'm saying doing something like that at that, that scale may not be possible, but start small, which is what I'm saying. Provide the environment that's needed. Train people, mentor them, train them, let them, get new skills. That's another challenge that I see is, what happens is people get trained and then they leave. That's what they see, prima facie, right? So, if we train this person, they'll get a better salary and they'll go. They don't go because they were waiting for this training. They were anyway planning to go, right? So what are you doing? So if these things are taken care of, like I don't come to office and think, okay, my mother's unwell, can I pay her bills? Wish I had a good healthcare, insurance coverage. Then, all those are taken care of, and obviously they're more present and so on. So yeah, essentially as much as you can, share your profit is too big a term to share, but do that. If your company is doing well, pay your employees well, pay per parity. Don't pay, I mean, because people talk. Whatever said and done, whichever level, they know what the other person is earning.
Right. Theoretically, we talk everything, but realistically, things happen. We talk.
Of course, I talk. And this is actually, this is so liberating to talk, not holding a position right now, Deepak, actually. I would have never openly admitted this. I mean, I know for a fact that everybody knows everybody else's salary. If not anyone else, office boys definitely know whose salary is how much.
Okay.
Unfortunately, the management thinks it's HR who's spreading these, but it's not. It's the people
Right.
themselves. They talk, and having a fair assessment system, and being as open. Assessment does come with its subjective part as well, but try and be as open about it, and appreciate people for what they have done, for what they have contributed, even the smallest of that. This essentially should become a culture of an organization. I don't know if I some
Hello, guys, and welcome back. That is not where we have ended. Vachana was kind of free flowing and she was abundant in sharing her experience and expertise and her strategies and her tactics and her frameworks with us. So, we had a huge discussion. I didn't want to put all of that into one episode, so we'll have a part two of this next Sunday, 8 a.m. We'll continue our discussion, with Vachana, and we will keep discussing and dissecting and deconstructing various aspects of leadership. So I'll see you on next Sunday, 8 a.m. But I hope today's episode has been interesting for you. It has been educational for you, and you have found value in today's episode. I hope you have taken a lot of notes. I hope you have learned a ton from this discussion. If you have questions for Vachana, go to the comment section and write them down. If you have similar experiences or you have lessons learned on a similar journey, go and share them in the comment section. If you have a guest that you would love to listen to on this podcast on leadership, go to the comment section and let us know who is that guest. We'll try to reach to them and we'll try to bring those guests onto the podcast. So do that. And I'll see you on next Sunday, 8 a.m. with part two of our discussion with Vachana. Till then, take care and be limitless.